The film centers around a troubled young man named Mike Tyson who aspires to become a professional boxer. As he grows up, he gets involved with the wrong group of friends. One day, Mike is pressured by his peers to attack a group of neighborhood kids with a weapon. He confronts them and fires a shot, but fortunately, no one is hurt. However, he soon discovers that his friends have abandoned him, so he decides to flee the scene. Mike gets involved in similar situations, and by the age of 13, he has already been arrested 38 times. This leads to him being incarcerated and sent to the Tron Juvenile Detention Center, where a former boxer named Bobby Stewart recognizes his potential as a fighter. After several months of training, Bobby takes him to Catskill, a boxing club in New York, and introduces him to the renowned trainer Cus D'Amato. Mike participates in a sparring session with a boxer from the club, and Cus is instantly impressed by his strength and potential. As a result, he decides to take Mike under his wing and invites him to stay at his home where he trains other fighters. Upon arrival, Cus introduces him to his wife Camille, who seems frustrated by Mike's presence as the house already hosts enough people. From that point on, Cus begins to rigorously train Mike to turn him into one of the best boxers. One day, when Mike is 16 years old, he receives the sad news that his mother has passed away, so he travels to Brooklyn to attend her funeral. Despite being devastated, Mike does not stay long in Brooklyn and returns to New York to continue his training. In memory of his mother, he decides to build a pigeon coop outside the house, which becomes a touching tribute to her. One day, Cus approaches grieving Mike and encourages him by saying that a professional boxer pushes through no matter what they're feeling or going through. Then, Cus gives Mike a gold pin that had been gifted to him by legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. This fills Mike with emotion and boosts his motivation to train for his upcoming fight. The film then shows the 1982 Junior Olympics, where Mike makes his amateur boxing debut. To everyone's surprise, he wins the fight by technical knockout in just 8 seconds of the first round. Meanwhile, Cus decides to adopt Mike and tells his wife. Surprisingly, Camille wholeheartedly agrees, as she also wants Mike to stay with them forever. When Mike returns to New York, he is thrilled to learn that Cus and Camille are going to adopt him, filling his future with hope. The next day, he meets 2 new boxing managers, Jimmy Jacobs and Bill Clayton, who, according to Cus, will help keep him out of trouble on his path to becoming #1. After his first professional match, Mike's old bad habits start to resurface, leading him to neglect his training and become a problematic student. Teddy, one of the trainers, tries to talk to Cus about Mike's behavior, but he fails to make a change since Cus is overly fond of Mike and indulges him too much. Soon after, Teddy is confronted by his younger sister, who claims that Mike tried to assault her, which infuriates him. That same night, when Mike returns home, Teddy points a gun at him and warns him never to do anything like that again. However, Mike is unfazed and simply smirks at Teddy, which angers him so much that he fires a warning shot, alarming everyone in the house. The following morning, Teddy decides to leave the boxing house after his controversial actions the previous night. As a result, Cus appoints Kevin as Mike's new trainer, and Mike quickly rises in the ranks, knocking out opponents from all over. Mike earns the nickname Iron Mike Tyson because of his incredible knockout power, mostly finishing his fights in the first round. However, as his popularity grows, Cus's health begins to deteriorate. After several weeks of intense pain, he eventually succumbs to old age and dies, leaving Mike devastated and without anyone to manage him. Jimmy decides to step in as Mike's new manager and assures him he's not going anywhere. The film then jumps to 1986, when Mike faces Trevor Berbick in Las Vegas for the WBC Heavyweight Championship. Mike completely dominates the fight and sets world records by becoming the youngest heavyweight boxing champion in history at just 20 years old. One day, while studying footage for an upcoming match, Mike gets distracted by a commercial featuring a beautiful model named Robin Givens. He's instantly captivated by her and calls to ask her out. Fortunately, she attends his next fight against Tony Tucker. Mike performs poorly in the early rounds due to the pressure of Robin being there, but Kevin notices this and gives him some motivation. Mike ultimately delivers an entertaining performance and wins the fight, retaining his heavyweight title. After the fight, Mike and Robin head home in a limousine, where things escalate quickly and they have sex. They also begin a public and official relationship. A year later, Mike secretly marries Robin, who is 3 months pregnant. Unfortunately, their happiness is short-lived, as shortly after the wedding, Mike receives news that Jimmy has passed away from leukemia. This mentally affects Mike, who has once again lost someone he loved and trusted. Later that week, while on his way to Jimmy's funeral, Mike is approached by boxing promoter Donald "Don" King, who offers him a hugely lucrative deal that no fighter could refuse. However, to Don's surprise, Mike declines the offer but decides to make Don his fight promoter anyway. Following this decision, a lot of controversy arises between Bill and Don, who fight over Mike's future contract. After much back and forth, Robin also gets involved in the dispute, accusing both Bill and Don of scamming and using Mike for money. A few months later, Mike and Robin suffer a miscarriage, which further stresses Mike and leads him to neglect his training. One day, Mike shows up at the boxing club after several days of absence and is scolded by Kevin for his lack of commitment. However, Mike doesn't care and begins training erratically. Frustrated by his attitude, Kevin tells him that Robin wasn't even pregnant to begin with and that he's grieving over nothing. It is then revealed that Robin had actually lied about her pregnancy to manipulate Mike into marrying her. This news has already gone public, but despite that, Mike becomes furious upon hearing it from Kevin. In response, he calls over 2 trainers, one by one, and brutally knocks them both out. The film then jumps to 1988, to the night of one of Mike's biggest fights against Michael Spinks. However, before the match begins, Bill finds out that he has been fired by Mike, who has appointed Don as his new manager. Mike ends up winning the fight and everyone celebrates. After the match, it is revealed that Mike has also parted ways with Kevin and plans to train with coaches arranged by Don. One day, while Mike and Robin are giving a joint interview for ABC News, things take a shocking turn when Robin describes her life as pure hell. She also lashes out about Mike's mental health issues, suggesting she'd leave the marriage if he doesn't seek therapy. Mike, feeling betrayed, sits silently while his wife rants on and on. Meanwhile, Don, Kevin, and many others watch the interview on TV, completely stunned. This leads to many arguments and fights between the couple, escalating to the point where the police are called to their property to intervene. On one occasion, the police arrive to find Mike having a meltdown, breaking various household objects, while Robin and her mother decide to move out of the house. A few days after the incident, Mike and Dawn see Robin on television, where she tells the press that Mike has become an emotionally abusive husband and also announces that she has filed for divorce. To relax and disconnect, Mike goes out one night to a club where he is approached by several women looking to have fun. In the middle of the crowd, he runs into a former opponent who starts insulting both him and Robin. In a fit of rage, Mike punches the boxer and knocks him down before fleeing the scene in his limousine. The film then fast-forwards to a year later in 1990 in Tokyo, Japan, for Mike's next professional fight against Buster Douglas. However, it's clear that he has lost direction in his career due to the stress and chaos in his personal life. As a result, Mike performs poorly in the ring and takes continuous hits. Although he manages to knock Buster down, Buster quickly gets back up and delivers even harder blows. Everyone is devastated to see Iron Mike in such a state for the first time. Unfortunately, Mike is knocked out in the 10th round, which marks his first loss ever and results in him being stripped of his heavyweight champion title. Mike is speechless after his first defeat, while Dawn insists on suing the boxing organization, believing he had actually won the fight. Afterwards, Mike returns to New York and visits an old friend. The two reminisce about the old days and talk about Cuss. A year later, Mike and some of his friends travel to Indianapolis to attend the Miss Black America pageant. They go to meet some of the contestants, and Mike lays eyes on one of them, named Desiree Washington. That same night, Mike calls the hotel where Desiree and her friends are staying and asks to speak with her. Nervously, she answers the phone while all her friends listen in, surprised. In the end, Mike convinces Desiree to go out with him, promising that she'll meet many other celebrities. Soon after, Desiree gets into a limousine with Mike, who takes her back to his hotel, claiming he needs to pick up his bodyguard. However, upon arriving at the hotel, Mike takes her to his room. In 1991, it is revealed that Mike has been taken to court for assaulting 18-year-old Desiree Washington in the hotel room he brought her to. Mike is ultimately found guilty of the charges of assault and deviant criminal conduct. This results in a 6-year sentence at the Indiana Youth Center. In addition, Kevin also files a civil lawsuit against Mike for damages. It is also revealed that he and Robin had already divorced in 1989, and the terms of their settlement were sealed. Upon his release from prison on March 25, 1995, Mike announces that he will immediately resume his boxing career, with Dawn continuing as his promoter. However, he is also scheduled to face trial for insurance fraud. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a recap. See you in the next one.